in to the Strike Zone. I am Joe Hunk. You can follow me on Twitter at Joe Hunk. But with the Nashville Sounds on the road, we are back for yet another season, live from suite number 2 here at First Horizon Park with the Elite Giants directly behind me as we get going for this season. Now, if this is the very first time that you have ever seen the Strike Zone pop up on your social media feed or pop up into your podcast, we're all about baseball. We're not just about MLB baseball, which that's kind of redundant by saying Major League Baseball, but the MLB. We're not just about what's going on directly on the field, directly in front of me at First Horizon Park. We talk college baseball. There's high school baseball that's going on as well. If it's baseball, especially here in Middle Tennessee, we are going to talk about it right here on the Strike Zone. Now, again, I said you can always follow me on Twitter at Joe Hunk. You can follow me on Instagram. You can add me on Facebook, wherever you want to get in your comments and your questions as we go along throughout the night tonight. Now, I mentioned that the Sounds are on the road. They are in Durham. They're taking on the Tampa Bay Rays AAA affiliate, the Bulls. Okay, it hasn't really went so well for the first few nights, all right? It's kind of went bad, as a matter of fact, because when you're facing the Tampa Bay Rays affiliate, and the Tampa Bay Rays are the number 1 team in Major League Baseball right now, it's also a thought that their minor league affiliate's going to be pretty good, which is exactly what the case is, and that team is stacked as well. But as that's going along next week, we're going to be out at the ballpark multiple times. As a matter of fact, we're going to be out here Wednesday with 3HL because it's going to be 3HL Suite Night. Now, I don't know if we're going to be in Suite 2, but we're going to be in a suite up here. We're giving away tickets for 3HL 104.5 The Zone listeners to come and hang out with us on Wednesday night. And then on Thursday night, we're back at the ballpark doing the Strike Zone live once again somewhere in the stadium. So if you listen to the Strike Zone or you watch it on social media, stop by, say hello, and do that. But again, the Iowa Cubs are going to be in town next weekend, and it's going to be a series that if you are a Cubs fan that you're going to want to see because there's some really good minor league prospects that the Cubs are bringing into town that you're going to be seeing taking on the Nashville Sounds. But let's go ahead and get started tonight because we also have an amazing guest coming up. We got him on his off day because Brandon Gaudin is the brand new play-by-play man for the Atlanta Braves on Bally Sports. He replaced Chip Carey, who's now with the St. Louis Cardinals. And Brandon is going to be joining us. And really, we just kind of want to meet him because when he first got the job, we, as far as Middle Tennessee, who has a ton of Braves fans in the area, didn't really get to know him that much. He's been a Big Ten guy. I'll explain here in just a little bit. But he's done a lot of stuff outside of the SEC footprint. So that's the reason why we kind of want to get to know him. But don't worry. He is a Southern guy. He is a guy that lives in Atlanta, has been living in Atlanta for like the last decade. And there's a reason for that. And we'll talk to him about that coming up here in just a few moments. But that we were getting into has to do with what happened in Toronto the other night. Now, if you are a baseball fan and you were paying attention to this, it has to do with Aaron Judge and the New York Yankees in the series that they just wrapped up against the Toronto Blue Jays. If you missed what happened, Aaron Judge was batting right side of the plate. He's facing Jay Jackson. And Jay Jackson was getting ready to throw his pitch into it. He's already set. He was ready to go. Aaron Judge was in the batter's box. There was no pitch count violation. Everything was on the legit. But at 1 second before Jay Jackson began his windup, you saw Aaron Judge look over, just glance over to the right side of the field where the Yankees dugout was and Anthony Rizzo was standing on deck, then glance back. Jay Jackson throws a pitch. Aaron Judge decides that he wants to deposit that thing directly in center field and hits a massive bomb. Everybody immediately goes on social media, and the Toronto Blue Jays broadcasters immediately started going, wait, hold up. What was he looking at? What was Aaron Judge paying attention to? Now, when this story happened, it got crazy because everybody was wanting to blame Aaron Judge for cheating, that the Yankees had somehow gotten information that they knew what was happening in Jay Jackson. They could hear the pitch comm, whatever it is. Those were the kinds of conversations that were taking place. And as the whole week was leading up to this, I kept thinking to myself, okay, there's one aspect of this that nobody's talking about. And I think that's the thing that we like to do on the Strike Zone is not look at what everybody is saying, because that's the whole mob mentality. And this is exactly what's happening. The Toronto Blue Jays broadcasters brought it up. You had Major League Baseball had to start investigating it. Twitter started going crazy. Aaron Judge, he's the quote unquote home run king now. And the reason he's doing it is because he's been cheating. But the one thing that nobody was talking about is something that I'm so happy that Jay Jackson finally talked about yesterday. And if you missed what he was talking about, he got interviewed by Toronto Blue Jays media, and they asked him, like, hey, what are your thoughts on this? And Jay Jackson said exactly what had happened. But nobody wanted to pay attention to it because everybody automatically wanted to say the Yankees are cheaters because of what they did at Fenway Park in the Apple Watches and all this other stuff that was taking place between the Yankees and Red Sox. And then you saw the fighting that was going on between the Yankees third base coach and the Toronto Blue Jays dugout. Look, the Yankees are cheaters. Let's just go ahead and say that. But Jay Jackson finally said exactly what had happened. He goes, yeah, I was tipping my pitches. That's what it was. Okay. It doesn't matter if it's 2023. It doesn't matter if it's 2019. It doesn't matter if it's 2005, which sounds weird. So we'll just say 2005. It doesn't matter what year it was. It could be 1938. It could be 1921. It doesn't matter. If a pitcher is tipping his pitches, that's just good baseball. The pitch comm has taken so much out of what the Houston Astros were doing, what the Boston Red Sox, what the New York Yankees, what the LA Dodgers, whatever baseball team you wanted to look at, PitchCom has taken that away. If you don't know much about PitchCom is the device that you will see catchers. They'll look down at their wrist just like this whenever they're in the catcher's position. I can't really get in the catcher's position just because the setup's not going to allow it. But they get here, you look at them and they tap some numbers on their wrist. There's a device and it looks exactly like what a quarterback would normally wear in a football game. And it's got the pitch numbers and it has on the other side, it has the device that he can type into. And what happens is the pitcher has a little microphone, like right above their ear, inside their hat. All right. All it is like a little bitty, thin sleek piece of metal, copper, whatever it is. It's just this little thin device. And it goes, take my hat off. It goes directly into this part of the hat. Okay. If you're watching on Zone TV, you can see the demonstration. If you're listening on the podcast, it's that flap inside the hat. That's exactly where this device goes. And inside of it, what happens is that device is connected to the pitch comm that the catcher has. And when the catcher pushes a few buttons, there is a verbal cue to the pitcher. So when the pitcher is, say, walking back to the mound after throwing a pitch, the catcher can go ahead and tell him the next pitch before they even get to the mound. So as the pitcher throws his pitch, he gets the ball back from the catcher. He turns around. The catcher can hit the device, hit the pitch comm, and the pitcher in his ear hears curveball, low and outside. That's all you hear. Pitcher gets on the mound. He gets set. He throws the ball. Catcher once again. Slider, high and in. That's all. That's what you hear. So that's what pitch comm is. It takes away from the need of signals and all this. In 2023, it just started that pitchers could also have the pitch comm. So now pitchers and catchers both have that device right above their ear where they can communicate with each other using the pitch comm system. So the pitcher can be standing on the mound. You've seen Max Scherzer do it. You've seen a few other pitchers do it where they'll have it like directly in their sleeve, like it's a strap that's connected to their arm, or it's possibly inside of their sleeve if they're wearing sleeves, and they'll just sit back. They'll stand off the mound. They'll hit the button and they'll tell the catcher, change up, low and away. Catcher nods his head and they're off and they're good to go. So that's taken away the whole idea of signals from the dugout to the catcher to the pitcher so that, they could possibly get stolen. So now the idea of signal stealing is not even a thing anymore. What is a thing is old-fashioned baseball that you can see when a pitcher is doing something and he has a tell. In college, whenever we were playing, we had this one catcher. His sole job was when the pitcher took the mound for the visiting team, he would stand on the rails in the dugout, and his sole job was to watch every single throw that the pitcher made. We purposely batted him later in the lineup so that he could still look and watch the pitcher and to see what was different. If he was throwing a changeup, maybe he had his glove just a little bit higher whenever he was getting it ready. If he was throwing a fastball, maybe he put his glove a little bit closer to where the logo was on his jersey. If he was throwing a curveball to get it set, maybe he was going to the belt. That's an easy one. Another potential one is possibly where if a pitcher always keeps his glove like right at shoulder high, which you want to keep it a little bit lower than that. If a pitcher keeps it shoulder high, you can see the muscles in the hand moving around. And our guy was able to tell, hey, he only does that when he's changing the grip to the curveball because he automatically gets his fingers on the ball and he sets it up for a changeup. Because it's easy to go from a changeup to a four seam and not even really change your wrist motion or change the way that you're gripping the baseball. For a curveball, it's different. So he could even see those types of things. He just had that eye. And some players have that eye. Anthony Rizzo, I would assume, which is who Judge was looking at, he may have that eye. I don't know because I'm not in the dugout and I don't know what the conversation is, but that's just baseball as you get older. It's easier to tell whenever you're in Little League, but as you start to get to high school and especially college and the minor leagues, they shut down on the tails. There's pitchers that have tails all the time, and that's probably part of the reason why they get rocked is because they had the tails and the other teams have picked up on it. It's not cheating. It's good baseball. If this was the NFL and you see the fact that you have a wide receiver standing on the line of scrimmage, just ask Blaine Bishop. You ever watched Invincible? You know, if the lineman see the white of the knuckle on the lineman, he's coming. If it's back, he's not. He's dropping back. Like you remember that whole conversation that you ever seen in Invincible? Great movie. It's on Disney+. That's just old-fashioned baseball. That's just paying attention. That's just being able to read your opponent. It's not cheating. It has nothing to do with cheating. It has something to do with being good at what you do. So next time, and I'm glad Jay Jackson said this because it was something that we really wanted to hit on the strike zone tonight. I'm glad that Jay Jackson hit on this because he understood he was tipping the pitches, and tipping pitches is not illegal. So before we automatically want to say arguably the greatest hitter in the last decade is cheating, maybe him and the Yankees are just good at their jobs. Look, they're not good at playing baseball right now, so maybe they got to be good at something, okay? Like, they're not good at really a lot of things at this point in time. They're one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball, or they have been throughout the season. So at least give them that if they have the ability to see when a pitcher is starting to tip its pitches. Speaking of tips, hey, you need to come out to First Horizon Park. Matter of fact, you need to do it next weekend or next week, because next week, when the Iowa Cubs are in town, you have a ton of fun things that are going to be taking place here at First Horizon Park. I mentioned Wednesday night. Now, Wednesday night's also going to be corduroy hat night. So the first 1,000 fans are going to be getting a corduroy hat. But the other thing that you can do is there's 500 fans that are going to be able to play music bingo, and you have the potential to win some prizes from Pepsi and run the bases post-game if the Sounds win. All that's Wednesday night. It's the same night that we're going to be out here for 3HL Sweet Night. And somebody from 3HL is going to be throwing a first pitch. Don't know who just yet, but somebody from 3HL is going to be throwing that first pitch. Now, before we continue, I just got the notification. He is ready to go. So, right now, we are joined on the strike zone by Brandon Gaudin. He is the brand new play-by-play man for the Atlanta Braves. The Braves just wrapped up their series in Texas. They start a new series tomorrow in Atlanta. Brandon is joining us on his off day, so I really appreciate it, bud. But, first off, thank you for coming on. But the other part about this is, especially with Braves fans here in Middle Tennessee, we have been used to a Carey being in the booth for 40 years, 4 decades. I mean, almost 5 decades. We saw some sort of Carey or some member of that family in the booth for the Atlanta Braves. So for you, like, how did this come about? How did you get the opportunity? How did you find out about it? What all happened audition wise for you to become the Atlanta Braves play-by-play man?
Yeah. And I grew up watching the Braves on TBS, and I idolize Skip Carey. He's really the reason that I not only fell in love with Braves baseball, but fell in love with sports broadcasting. And obviously, his son Chip took over his seat, and it had been a Carey in the booth for over 3 decades. And so I'm sure for Braves fans, a little jarring to get a change with somebody with a different name. But it all happens so quick because usually when Major League Baseball jobs open, and they don't open very often, it typically happens right after the season. And most of those hires will take place in November, maybe December. But Chip left very late to St. Louis because St. Louis had an opening and he has ties there with his family and his grandfather. And so he decided to go back, but that was in February. And it was a whirlwind. Once I heard that the position was open, I was certainly intrigued by it. I was already living in Atlanta. I was already a Braves fan. And I thought if there was ever a team job that I would go after, it would be this one. But from the time that it was announced Chip left to the time that I was informally introduced, it was only about a 10 to 14 day window. So it was boom, boom, boom. And it still, to some degree, feels like I'm drinking out of a fire hose because there was really no break from the interview process to spring training and on into the regular season. But thankfully, it's a dream come true, and it's been a wonderful start to the season. It always helps when the team is off to a great start as well.
Oh yeah. And now you get to watch Ronald Acuna just steal every base or hit a home run whenever he so pleases. That's what he did last night. I mean, honestly, it is kind of like it's like if you play MLB The Show. I don't know if you're a gamer. I mean, you're on a video game, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. But as far as the gaming is concerned, if you play MLB The Show, you're going to do one of two things. If you're playing with Ronald Acuna Jr., you're going to either hit a bomb or you're going to get on first base and you're going to steal second and third. It's just like that. But you have done a ton of media in Atlanta. The moment that you were actually named the brand new play-by-play guy for the Braves, you were all over Atlanta media. But here in Nashville, we really haven't got to learn that much about Brandon Gaudin, the person, outside of what we've already seen through the baseball games that you've been broadcasting for Bally Sports. So, like, how did this start for you? How did you get into a position that you wanted to be a voice that did play-by-play for baseball and everything else?
Yeah, I grew up just 2.5 hours from Nashville in Evansville, Indiana, right on the Indiana Kentucky border. So I spent a lot of time in Nashville as a kid because for us, Evansville, decent sized city, but we would always go to Louisville or Nashville or St. Louis or Cincinnati to get our quote unquote big city fix. So very familiar with Nashville. And then I would come down to Atlanta to go to Braves games because I was a Braves fan. And I just always remember watching those games on TBS saying, man, someday I would love to be able to broadcast Major League Baseball, specifically for the Braves if it ever worked out. But I just thought I'd love to broadcast baseball in general. So when I graduated from college, I went to Butler in Indianapolis. And I got my start in minor league baseball, making $500 a month, broadcasting 76 games in 80 days for the Orem Owls out in Utah. And I just kept kind of living that dream, bouncing from one job to the next when opportunities seemed to fit right and present themselves. And then lo and behold, I didn't know where all that would lead, but to fast forward to getting the Braves job at age 39, to say it was a dream come true is an understatement. It also just seems surreal the way that it all kind of came to fruition. But it's been pretty darn cool and a neat thing to share with my family. I have a family full of Braves fans. I got a lot of friends who are Braves fans. To be able to share this journey with all of them and the people that have supported me along the way, it makes it that much more special.
Have you had any like full circle moments yet? Like one of those moments where you can just sit there and say, man, if little Brandon could see what I am doing like right now.
Yeah, there's been several times. I mean, the first biggest one was just the first game I worked down at spring training to be able to realize that the lights and the camera were going on and it was time to broadcast Braves baseball for the first time. That hit me. I mean, I was pretty emotional with it. And then I would say the first home opener for the Braves, and they ended up winning that game against the Padres in walk-off fashion. So to be able to have your first home game there in that chair as the TV play-by-play announcer for the Braves and have it be a walk-off game winner after the fact when I had a moment to just sit there and digest it all. It was, again, I'll use the word emotional. It just was. I realized everything that went into that moment, all the culmination leading to that point. I remembered all the days back in my childhood home in Evansville, Indiana, broadcasting make believe Braves games in my living room as an 8-year old when I would take the inside of a paper towel roll, that cardboard insert, and that was my bat. And I would wad up a little balloon and put a piece of scotch tape around it, and that was my ball. And I would throw that balloon up and hit it with that cardboard insert, and I would run the bases. The bases were pillows from our family room couch, and I would announce the games as if I was Skip Carey, and every game I was the Braves, and I knew their lineup by heart. And so when you fast forward and you take the job and you're calling a walk off win in the first game at home, just naturally, instinctively, your mind is flooded with those memories of you as a 7, 8, 9-year old of dreaming of that moment. And look, not many people get to live out a dream like that, so I realize I'm incredibly fortunate.
So I'll tell you, one of the cool things that me and my buddies always like to do is when we were little, in high school and college, we would always like talk about baseball lineups. And I had a buddy, Joey Trippiano. Trippy, I love you, bro. He could recite lineups from, all these different teams. And but for me, I was always like you, like I was a Braves guy. So like for you, what's the earliest Braves lineup that you can remember top to bottom?
91 through 99, I know those lineups pretty well. But when the Braves were first making their runs, and they had Gant and Nixon and Justice and Pendleton at third, Blauser at short, Lemke at second, Sid Bream at first, Greg Olson at catcher. That was the early 90s. And then, it would transition. There were several different guys that would jump into each spot. Obviously, Chipper would take over at third, Marquise Grissom in the outfield, and Kenny Lowe. I could go on and on. But 91 to 99, those were kind of the years where I was really into Braves baseball. And I didn't miss games. When they were on the West Coast, I would sneak down from my bedroom to watch them on TBS late at night. And my parents didn't know that until years later when I told them. So I just have a lot of great memories with this organization. So now to be able to step into this role and be a small part of the organization, it's pretty surreal.
How surreal is it for you to go up into a press box now and sit down, fill out a scorecard, and you're writing Ronald Acuna Jr., you're writing Ozzie Albies, you're writing, Max Fried, Austin Riley, and it's not a drill. Like this is really happening.
Yeah, and I filled out a lot of scorecards in my day, but none was as neat as filling out that Braves scorecard for the first time. And even though the names have changed from the guys that I used to root for in the 90s, I followed the franchise since. And so for me, being a fan of the Braves made it easy to step into the booth because I didn't have to fake it. I was already a fan. I am already a fan. So the passion and energy that I try to bring, that I hope to continue to bring, it's genuine because I've had it sitting on the couch for so many years watching Braves baseball and cheering them on. Now I'm just doing it in a different capacity. And look, I don't take that lightly. It's an honor. It's a privilege to be able to call any type of professional sporting event, but to be able to do it for the team that you love, the organization that you love, and have the cool way of being able to bring that to the fan base night in and night out, it's extra special.
All right, cool. Now, so we got that out of the way. We got the serious stuff. Now I need to know the fun thing. Okay. How bored were you during COVID when you made the one shining moment video that is on YouTube? Because that's a lot of video editing.
Yeah.
And how did all this come about?
Yeah, if there's a lot of evidence as to why I'm still single and not married at 39, but that 3-minute video may encapsulate it perfectly. When COVID shut down, most people still had to work from home. Well, for us in the sports world, we had nothing to do. And it was the first time really in 12 years that I looked at myself and I said, you have absolutely nothing going on right now. And I couldn't fake it. I couldn't make up a game. So I thought, well, I love the NCAA tournament. I was so sad that there was no March Madness. I usually get to broadcast that for Westwood One every year, and I missed it. And I thought, one shining moment is not going to happen this year. We have to have one shining moment. And so I started filming it in my apartment as a spoof, and I was just going to send it to my brothers and a couple of friends. And then I started ordering things off Amazon, mascot outfits and team shirts and headbands and a cheerleader outfit. And all of a sudden, I realized I was so deep into this thing that I was pot committed. I was going all in, and it took me 5 days, and not just 5 days where it was a couple of hours. I'm talking sun up to sundown. I recorded the last shot at 4 a.m. the day before what would have been the NCAA tournament championship game, and I edited the rest. I hadn't slept in like 24 hours. I edited it the rest of that day and put it out the night of what would have been the national championship game in 2020, and it got more of a response than I thought it would. What was initially supposed to be just a fun little goofy video turned into way too much time on my hands. That's ultimately what
All right,
happened.
look, that's not the only video, okay? Like that one's the one that's the most famous. That's the one that blew up. I mean, we're talking like 125,000 views, I believe, if I remember correctly, as of this morning. But you also have another video. And the first question I have to ask is who's your favorite Ninja Turtle? That's my first question.
Leonardo.
See, you're a Leonardo guy. See, I'm a Raphael guy. My son's a Raphael guy. We're in this stage right now where, he's watching Ninja Turtles, he's singing the theme songs, he's doing all of that. So, like, what's crazy to me is I see this and I see you doing the Raphael or the Leonardo thing because you're a Leonardo guy. You were doing that and it was hilarious. But the other part of the video I have to ask about is wrapping paper a good substitute for paper towels?
Yeah, so the video you're talking about, I was just going crazy just in my apartment and all, we were all going crazy. But I didn't have a wife, I didn't have kids, so it was just me. And in some ways you could say, "Oh man, that's great." But after a certain amount of time, you need some interaction. And I had done the basketball video, and about 5, 6 weeks later, I thought, well, maybe I'll just do another video. And so I just started writing down stupid things that I would do if I was stuck in a house and wanted to show my boredom and the things that I was resorting to as a person stuck at home single during COVID. And so, yeah, so I shot all these stupid little scenes in my house. The one that did get most response was the one you're talking about, where I acted like, oh, I was out of paper towels. Nobody in the nation had paper towels. So I went into my pantry. I got Christmas wrapping paper and put it where the paper towel roll would be, and then I ripped that off after I washed my hands. So that was something that I probably spent 3 full days on that, and I'll never get those 3 days of my life back. But then again, I had nothing else going on, so what the heck?
Well, look, the one video, look how long you just said it took you to do. The other video only took you so many days, so at least you've got figured out like a week of how to get through COVID. Like all I did during COVID was I watched documentaries and I think I watched every single episode of Bob's Burgers. That was pretty much all I did the entire thing of COVID.
Well, I started by binging Breaking Bad because that was a show that I always told myself I wanted to watch, and I had never had the chance to do it. I just couldn't find the time. So I binged that in a week. Get through that. I'm going back. I'm watching old Saved by the Bell reruns. I rewatched Seinfeld for the 1,000th time every episode. And yeah, at some point I was just like, man, I got to find something else to do to not necessarily be productive with my time, but just have more fun with my time. And that's where those videos came to be.
What on earth is the Brandon Gaudin Football League? Yes. Yes. What is that?
Yeah, is that the thing on Instagram with those?
Yes.
I'm not 100% sure. It was something that I saw on Instagram. As I think a group of college kids who play a flag football league, and they play Madden too. And I think they were just more or less making fun of me, calling it the Brandon Gaudin Football League, and because they just play way too much Madden. Well, they messaged me after a couple years of the league going on and asked if I would do some spoof video for one of the guys' birthdays, and I did it. And that's really the only way that I knew that that league existed. And then I went back through their Instagram feed and was just laughing hysterically at some of the video posts and some of the team names in there. But I don't know. Something tells me that league doesn't have staying power, Joe.
No. In fact, I think the last post that they made was like looking at like over a year ago. Was that so? I'm going to go ahead and assume they folded.
Don't know. They went bankrupt.
Yeah, it was kind of like the AAF. They're just no longer with us. They're just gone. Yeah. All right. Now the one thing I do have to ask you about, and I know you don't know, but people that are watching the Strike Zone right now on Zone TV, I have two worlds. Okay, I have obviously my 3HL Strike Zone world that I do right here, but during football season, I work with the Titans, and during football season, I preview every single Tennessee Titans upcoming game using Madden. Okay. So, I mean, I mute you. I'm sorry. It's nothing personal. I mean, I mute you just so that I can talk. It has nothing to do with you at all. But like for you, we know it a lot because of Charles Davis, and he does color in the game. But you're the play-by-play guy, and you replaced Jim Nantz, which is also a Nashville native. So like, or lives here now. So you replaced Jim Nantz. Charles Davis is on the call with you, and it kind of benefits you now because a younger generation, my age and younger, know you from the Madden game. So when we hear that voice, we instantly think about Madden. But how did you become the play-by-play guy, and how did you go from being, this guy that was wanting to do sports? Now you do the Braves, but you also have been the voice for Madden for the last few years.
Yeah, I've had a lot of strange tangents in my career. I mean, for the last 6 years, I guess, I've been doing Fox and Big Ten Network. And the Madden thing kind of came at the same time that all of that. When I kind of transitioned into national TV, the EA thing just kind of fell in my lap. I was lucky. A producer that works on the game back, I think in 2016, happened to hear a call of mine, thought I had a voice and a cadence that would work well for Madden, and they just brought me in randomly for a tryout. And at the time, I didn't think much of it because I knew that Jim Nantz was my predecessor. I knew that there were several other people that they must have been bringing in that had much higher profiles than me. But the audition went well, and I thought, well, who knows? I thought that went well. It seemed like they received it well. We had a good meeting. And then 2 months later, back in 2016, they called and offered me the position, and I've been doing it ever since. And I could have never imagined. It's something that you just never imagine, you never envision. It wasn't even on my radar, but it's been awesome. It's different. It's totally different from calling real games because it's more just like you are a voice actor. They're giving you a script. You're in a recording studio. Whereas when you're calling a real game, if I sit down and watching a Braves game and calling it, you're just reacting. But for Madden, you're just reading a piece of paper and trying to bring those lines to life. So it's been a good learning experience. And you mentioned Charles Davis, best guy in the world. I mean, and he has been my best friend, the guy that I've seen the most and spoken with the most over the last 7 years of my life, which is hard to believe. And to be able to be on this journey with him and how great he's been to me, it's really been something special.
All right, look, I have to be honest with you, and I mean this wholeheartedly. Okay, I love the way that you do games. Like I absolutely love the way that you call a game, because I think it was possibly third or fourth game of the regular season. And I'm watching your emotion, your intensity, your excitement, every single bit of that was coming through the television. And so I'm watching this game, and it's the fourth or, maybe even the fifth game of the regular season, but you were making it feel like it was a playoff game that the Braves had to win because they're down 2-1 in the series and they needed it to tie the series up. So like, I just want you to know, like, as much as we joke around and we're talking about the one shining moment and stuff, I love the way that your emotion is coming out and that we as a fan base can actually feel it through the television.
Well, that means a lot to me. And I said it earlier, that's kind of what I'm striving to do, because it's not, I think it's important to do that when you are a play-by-play announcer for a specific team. It's not like I'm doing a game for Fox where I need to be neutral. No, I'm doing this for the Atlanta Braves. And I said the easy thing for me in this adaptation process is that I did not have to learn to like the Braves or to like baseball. That was already there. So that part was natural. It was just getting into the rhythm of meeting the players, meeting the coaches, getting to know everybody, learning how to broadcast the game each and every day rather than having space in between your broadcasts, which was typical for me at Fox. But the art of bringing the passion and that energy to the fan base is something that, again, I view it as a privilege. I view it as kind of something that I get to do. It's not like it's something that I have to do. I get to do it. And to be able to do it each and every night is just a ton of fun.
And now, since you are a true Braves fan, okay, I know we're about to wrap up with Brandon Gaudin, new voice for the Atlanta Braves on Bally Sports. But since you are a true Braves fan, first off, I'm gonna put some parameters on this question. You can't say the Mets, you can't say the Phillies, you can't say the Nationals or the Marlins. You can't say anybody in division. So here's how the question's going to be. Name the non-division opponent or non-division major league team that you hate the most.
Oh,
Because as a Braves fan, I know mine, but I kind of want to know yours.
yeah, it's interesting. I in the first name that pops to my head is the Yankees, just because they're the Yankees, they're the evil empire. And I lived in New York for a couple of years, and so being a Braves fan up there, it kind of became tough. So Yankees are the first one that comes to mind, but the Dodgers, I have some family that is from LA and they're very big Dodgers fans. And so I've kind of created this interfamily rivalry with my family and their family, my dad's sister and her children. So it might be a tie between the Yankees and the Dodgers at this point, as far as who I can't stand the most. So we'll see. Get to play everybody this year. So when the Braves play them, it'll be interesting.
Well, look, man, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything that you're doing and everything that you were doing on Bally Sports for Atlanta Braves fans, because the emotion, the excitement, every single thing, I'll say it again, it is fantastic to see that and feel it coming through the television. It makes games so much fun to watch, no matter where it is. Like, the Toronto series, even though the Braves are getting beat, as the comeback is kind of starting to happen, you can kind of really you could still feel like, oh, hey, they may do this. Like, you could feel that excitement in your voice with Texas, when the Braves were tied at 2, or Braves were tied in the 9th, and then the home run in the 8th inning take the lead. Like, you could genuinely feel your excitement during it. So, I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for hopping on, especially on your off days. You're getting ready for the next series in Atlanta. So thanks, man. I really do appreciate it. That's Brandon Gaudin, brand new play-by-play voice for the Atlanta Braves. So since we're talking about the Atlanta Braves, as we wrap up tonight, since we're talking about them, the other question that is kind of, I say, looming along, has to do more about now the injuries that are happening with the Atlanta Braves, because Max Fried is out. He's potentially going to be out for the next 2 months. Kyle Wright just got put on the 60-day IL. He's going to be done for 60-plus days, possibly more than 2 months, depending on it. Now, Max Fried's a forearm strain. They think that he's going to be okay. The problem with Kyle Wright is more about the shoulder inflammation. This is the same injury that he had in spring training, is the reason why he missed so much of spring training and part of the regular season when the Braves started the regular season. So this is kind of more of an issue for Kyle than I think what it is for Max Fried. But the question is, how are the Braves still winning? Like, and I say it jokingly because, yes, we know the Atlanta Braves have this amazing offense. Ronald Acuna Jr., I mean, seriously, okay? Like, I see the comments coming in as we're joking about a Ronald Acuna Jr. Since the season has started, people have already started the 40-40 count. Like, since they have started, every bit of this about him getting the 40-40, he's already leading in the MVP rankings. Now, again, all of this can totally change at the drop of a hat. We understand this. But between him, the way Matt Olson is, Sean Murphy, look, I was not totally sold on the Sean Murphy deal. Not that the Braves couldn't use him, because obviously they could, but I just thought there were other needs on the team that the Braves could have went for instead of Sean Murphy. But Sean Murphy has been amazing at the catcher position, especially with Travis d'Arnaud going down with the concussion. He's been great. Some of this may fall on him, because with the catcher, you work with the pitching staff enough that absolutely this can fall on you, and you can be the reason why this team is pitching better. Because look at somebody like Bryce Elder, for instance. Bryce Elder is having an amazing season, okay? I used to get nervous whenever I would see the starting pitcher for the Braves, and it was Bryce Elder, because I was thinking, great, Braves going to lose this one. Go ahead, get on my app, and go ahead and bet against the Braves. No, it's not going to be the case. But he's pitching better. He's pitching different. There are things that he's doing that he wasn't doing in 2022. And it's 2 simple things. He's throwing 2 pitches more accurately than what he was in 2022. That's the biggest difference. You can point to a lot of things and think, oh, well, he's doing this. No, the fastball is still pretty much the same for Bryce Elder. It has not changed. What has changed is where he is throwing a lot of his pitches. That is the biggest change, because in 2022, he was throwing his sinker and he was not hitting the plate at all. I mean, majority of the time, if he was throwing the sinker for a strike, it was down the middle of the plate or it was inside to the lefties. The ball's getting mashed. Okay, like that is part of the reason why he was messing up. A sinker and a two-seam, they're cousins. Like they're basically the same thing, all right? They're like first cousins. But he kept throwing that, and if he did throw it for a strike, he would always throw it on the inside part of the plate, and when you're going into a lefty, they were crushing it. Now, he's throwing that pitch still on the left side of the plate, but he's actually throwing it for a strike more than what he did in 2022. The other pitch that he's throwing a lot differently is the changeup. Now, he's throwing that changeup low and into the dirt. Reason being is because he's trying to make it look like the fastball, and he's having it drop at the very end. But when he does throw it for a strike, he is peppering the left side of the plate. I mean, just peppering it. He has more control over his pitches. That's the reason why he's pitching much better. That's the biggest reason. He does have more command of the fastball. He's not leaving it over the plate as much as he was in 2022. That's more impressive as well, because in 2022, that thing was right down the middle. 2023, he's throwing it a lot more over to the right side, even higher up into the strike zone, which is harder for batters to hit, especially on that right side. So those are some of the things that you're seeing from him that have made him pitch better. And the reason why is, look, if you listened to the strike zone at all last year when we were talking about the Braves, I was so hard on Charlie Morton. Big Game Charlie is what we called him. Charlie Morton is pitching better. His curveball is back. Players are not barreling it up as much as they were in 2022. If you want to go all sabermetrics, you want to go all analytics on this, his barrel percentage and exit velocity and launch angle and all of that, all down. In fact, in 2022, his launch angle was 13.2 degrees. That's where the home runs came in. That's where all the runs started being scored. 2023, as of today, his launch angle exit velocity, or his launch angle exit, I should say, it's a horrible way of saying it, but the launch angle from the hits, 6.2. It's half of what it was. Ball's sinking further. He's throwing his curveball more. Now, he was throwing his curveball a lot anyway, but especially in 2023, he's got way more control over that, and you're also starting to see that as more of his out pitch than what we've seen over in 2022, because he has more control over it, and so batters are starting to go fishing with it just a little bit more. He also, at this point in time, is throwing the changeup a little bit more. He's throwing the curveball a little bit more, and he's not throwing the cutter as much. So his repertoire, ooh, it sounded nice saying that, repertoire has changed just a little bit. That's it. So those are two of the reasons why the Braves pitching staff is still going well, even with Max Fried and Kyle Wright being injured. And then you have Spencer Strider. Look, the man's a freak. Okay, he just is. Even though last night he only struck out 7 guys, the man is a freak. I'm telling you this. I know Slay has the parlay, but I promise you, anytime Spencer Strider is on the mound, go into your gambling app, FanDuel, /Hunk, whatever you want to use. Okay. Promo code Hunk, whatever. Go to a Braves game that Spencer Strider is pitching, automatically go to the other wagers and find the alternate strikeouts category. Go ahead and bet Spencer Strider to strike out 10 plus. It's almost every single time it's a winner. It just is, because he's always striking out 10 plus. And what's crazy about him striking out 10 plus is how he's doing it. He does have more command of the changeup this year than what he has had in the past. But the weirdest thing about Spencer Strider, and something that Braves fans keep in the back of your mind, if the velocity ever changes and he's not throwing 101, he's not throwing 102, and it starts going and becoming 98 or 96 or 97 or whatever it is, if that ever changes, he's going to have to change this. But Spencer Strider will seriously stand on the mound, stare directly at the batter into his soul, and then throw a 102 mile per hour fastball directly down the middle. That's his favorite spot. It's not an exaggeration. I told you about Bryce Elder. He's throwing it a little bit higher, a little bit more to the right side of the plate, a little bit more to the left side of the plate. Even though he has more control of it, Spencer Strider is throwing it right down the middle. It is almost like he wants to challenge every single batter in Major League Baseball to try to hit his pitch. That's what it is. Every single game that I watch of his, majority of the fastballs will go directly down the middle, and they'll be 102, and that's how he's striking you out. It's amazing now, but if that ever drops, he's going to have to figure out new placement on it. Yes, he will throw it. He'll throw it all over the plate to an extent, but for some reason, I don't know him as a person. I haven't listened to many interviews. I haven't got to talk to him. The man loves to throw the fastball right down the middle. And that is the weirdest stat that I have ever found when it comes to thinking about Spencer Strider and trying to figure out the reason why he's so dominant. But he's doing it, and majority of the time he's winning. So it's an amazing thing for the Braves fans. But I promise you, next time you watch Strider pitch, count how many fastballs go directly down the middle. It is hilarious to watch. Because he will basically let the batter know, I'm throwing a fastball here. It's going to be 102. I just dare you to hit it. And they can't. And they strike out. But it's not all great. I mean, everything in the lineup is not amazing. Probably the biggest concern is going to be somebody like AJ Minter. Okay, now, Iglesias pitched last night. It is a little choppy. The waters were not smooth, but he got out of the inning. He got the win for the Braves. The Braves were able to finish off the series against Texas, winning that series. But AJ Minter is the scary one, because as much as I joke about Spencer Strider and where he throws his fastball majority of the time, AJ Minter is doing almost the same thing. And that's a problem, because AJ Minter can't throw 102. AJ Minter is keeping more fastballs right down the middle than what he was in 2022. That's why he's getting rocked. 2022, he liked to keep his fastball on the glove side of the plate. Now, AJ Minter's a lefty, so I'm talking about the right side of the plate. But he liked to throw his fastball onto the right side of the plate. 2023, it's kind of slid more over to the middle of the plate, which is very bad if you're now throwing 97 and 98 in Major League Baseball. That 4 miles per hour is a lot. That's what you got to pay attention to with AJ Minter to see if he can get it right, is be where he's going to be placing that. Now, at the same time, you need the Braves hitting, you need all of that. But at the moment, the Mets suck because they're injured. And every single time you think they're going to get better, they just get injured just a little bit more. Every single time that you are watching the Braves this weekend, just pay attention to some of the things that we talked about today on the strike zone. Now, if you're one to watch a series and you're just wanting to watch it because you're a fan of baseball and you want to see two good teams play, you need to pay attention this weekend to the Milwaukee Brewers. I'm not saying it just because it's First Horizon. The Milwaukee Brewers, who's the number one team in the NL Central, taking on the Tampa Bay Rays, which is the number one team in Major League Baseball. That is a matchup, and probably the best matchup over the weekend if you're talking about Major League Baseball. But where your eyes need to be this weekend, the rest of tonight, Friday night, Saturday, you need to be paying attention to what's happening SEC baseball-wise as everybody starts getting ready for the SEC tournament that's happening next weekend in Hoover. Now, make sure you join us next week, 7 o'clock, once again, First Horizon Park. The Sounds are going to be back in town. They're taking on the Iowa Cubs. You can be here. Thursday night's going to be Throwback Night, which obviously you can tell we've kind of leaned into that Throwback Thursday feeling when it comes to the Strike Zone this season. We're going to be broadcasting somewhere throughout the stadium, so come by, say hello, hang out with us, talk with us for a little bit, whatever it is. But we'll be back next Thursday. Now make sure as you follow me on Twitter at Joe Hunk. And I obviously, just like I do every single week, cannot say thank you enough to the Nashville Sounds for everything that they have done for the Strike Zone and for us and for allowing us to broadcast from here every single week. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Have an amazing weekend. We will see you next Thursday night back at First Horizon Park for Sounds and Cubs. And we'll be broadcasting live starting at 7 o'clock at First Horizon Park here on 104.5 The Zone and Zone TV.